Good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar discussing McPherson's Middle School when they significantly reduce use of Chromebooks in the classroom. I am Dr. Tracy Frederick, Executive Director of Kansas School Board Resource Center, and Ward Cassidy, our Senior Advisor, is also with us today. If you are new to our webinars and you're not familiar with Kansas School Board Resource Center, I want you to know that our mission is to help school board members be effective advocates for students and improve academic outcomes. We're so excited today to hear McPherson's Middle School Principal, Miss Inge Esping, and school social worker, Miss Carrie Brock, discuss how McPherson Middle School administration and teachers arrived at the decision to return to pencil and paper homework assignments and significantly reduce use of Chromebooks in the classroom. They will also update us on how this policy and practice is going since they implemented it in January. So our panelists, let me tell you a little bit about them so you will know their background. Miss Inge Esping is the principal of McPherson Middle School. During her tenure there, she's led a cultural transformation centered on safety, connection, and consistency. Ms. Esping has implemented initiatives such as Bullpup Time Advisory, the Resiliency Initiative, and Parents and Partnerships Program. Under her leadership, McPherson has been recognized as Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase School for 5 consecutive years. Ms. Esping has recently named 2025 Kansas Middle School Principal of the Year by the Kansas Principals Association. And as I said, joining Ms. Esping is Carrie Brock, a licensed specialist clinical social worker and registered play therapist. She holds an MSW from Washburn University and a BSW from Kansas State University. Ms. Brock currently supports students at McPherson High School through the McPherson County Special Education Cooperative, and she also manages a private practice serving a diverse clinical population. Her commitment to systems level reform is rooted in observations of how social media and technology share the social, behavioral, and psychological landscape for today's students. We will have some time at the end of the presentation for your questions, so you can put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I will ask them at the appropriate time. So also note that this presentation is being recorded, so you will receive a link to the recording to review and to share as you like with your colleagues or other, parents or anyone else. It will also be archived on the workshop video section of the KSBRC webpage. So without further delay, I want to provide as much time for you all to talk as possible. I'm going to turn it over to both of you and let's begin our conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Let me go ahead and get our presentation up and ready to go. As she said, my name is Inge Esping. I'm the principal here at McPherson Middle School. This is my 4th year here as principal. This is actually the building that I also student taught in. So I student taught here. I was a teacher here in the building, was assistant principal and athletic director, and am now principal of this school. So definitely a place that has my heart.
And as they said, I'm Carrie, and I have been a school social worker for quite a while. I started my school social work career in DeSoto and was there for 10 years. And then this is my 8th year here in McPherson, and I have served all levels of public education, and currently I'm at the high school level. But the past 7 years, I actually was at the middle school as well here. So.
Very good. All right. So without further ado, we felt it was really relevant to share our timeline because I think our history really is what helped us arrive at this change and this decision. So in 2018, McPherson Middle School was part of the KSDE redesign project. We were one of the Mercury 7 schools. So at that time, we adopted a very heavy ed tech curriculum and moved all of our curriculum online. So students already at that time had a one-to-one device, but it really accelerated the use of those one-to-one devices. And then, the COVID pandemic happened, and it accelerated that device use even further. The year before I became principal in 2021, 2022, when I came back for a tour before accepting the principalship, I was very alarmed at how much I saw students not only on their devices, but also personal devices on their cell phones in passing period at a middle school level and things like that. With work with the BLT team, prior to my first year as principal, we chose to go ahead and adopt a cell phone ban at that time. So that was in 2022. We saw a huge positive shift in our culture. We had a 70% reduction in our overall suspension rate just in that first year of implementation, and made very few changes at that time. So we really feel confident that a large portion of that suspension reduction was really tied to also that cell phone ban, because students had less access to be able to honestly bully one another. It was not unusual to look at our log entries before and see students misusing their own personal devices. So we were definitely on that cutting edge of some cell phone restrictions. In 2023, we moved a step further and restricted Spotify accounts for students. We had many like Bark and Go Guardian notifications that were tied to some of the concerning music that students were listening to while also trying to work on work independently. And we felt that students were becoming more distracted, trying to also listen to music while they were trying to work independently as well. In 2024, we moved a step further and restricted the use of YouTube during the school day. And then also student-to-student email was restricted. So students with middle school level emails were then unable to send an email to another student within the 3 grades here at the middle school. Last spring is really when we started the discussion about Chromebooks. In our building leadership team, we were taking another hard look at our data. And while we were so very proud of the work that has been done to create a more positive environment here at school and to reduce behavior infractions and things like that, we were really still feeling that there was just a little bit of stagnant progress. The discussion really surrounded engagement of students, how we were concerned that students were quickly going to their next class and trying to get on games, how challenging it was to redirect students away from other distractions online versus the work that was at hand. So our building leadership team decided in the spring of last year that we wanted to pursue a movement away from one-to-one Chromebooks. I had one teacher in particular who really took this initiative on and began seeking grants because we knew to be able to make this move forward, we would need classroom carts to be able to make this change. And we knew that was going to be a cost that we couldn't quite afford in our budget at that time. We knew it would, for our size building, to secure enough carts that we needed for our classrooms, it was around $10,000. So our teacher began looking at grants last spring. We were not awarded any grants in the spring from our community foundation, which truly ended up being a blessing. That probably would have been too quick of a timeline. This fall, then, we were able to really set the stage for our teachers to help them understand that this change was going to happen. We weren't necessarily sure when. We knew we needed to secure the funds for these Chromebook carts. And so it gave our teachers time to experiment and to really be thoughtful about how they were going to reduce Chromebook use in their classes. Many of our teachers, knowing that this was the plan, started this fall very heavily moving away from Chromebooks. And then for teachers who were just a little bit slower at initiating, it gave them time to start planning and experimenting with how they were going to make this change. This fall, We submitted several more grants through our McPherson County Community Foundation, through both our Education Foundation, but then also community-based grants as well. We received information in October that half was going to be funded by an education grant. But I thought it was interesting that the Community Foundation also viewed this change as a community-based issue and a community-based challenge to face. And so the other half was awarded by a community grant rather than just that education foundation, because they felt that this is a community problem that we needed to face. We were able to secure the grant in October. From there, we worked with our tech department to decide on the final timeline, and they felt confident that we would be able to redistribute Chromebooks in January. So students, the last couple of days before winter break, returned their devices and all that came along with their devices. Our tech company, they're called Reach. Reach was able to redistribute Chromebooks to carts. We anticipated that they wouldn't be able to be out until mid-January to February. Honestly, however, our company found it, our tech support found it very easy for them to redistribute. We ended up having enough Chromebooks within our building as we had just done another Chromebook adoption. So we had some that were brand new and still had some that were in good working condition, but a little bit older, that we were able to redistribute with ease. The way that we've distributed is that each core content class has their own Chromebook cart, and then electives share either by need or geographical location within the building. So my art teachers, for example, neither of them felt that they were going to need Chromebooks often, but where their classrooms are, it can be just really challenging to get a cart to. So there's a cart that is shared between art. My lead-worthy class, vocal music, band, and orchestra, all four of those programs share one cart. And then teachers are just expected to communicate and work together on when they would need carts or not. Another piece that I found really interesting is while we had planned for our core content teachers to each have one, and they do at this time, I do have several teachers who have been really challenging themselves to pull back even further. So my ELA teachers, for example, do not feel that they need their own carts. They feel that if that becomes an issue with numbers in the future, that they would be able to share amongst themselves with either 1 to 2 carts among our entire department to be able to be thoughtful about using technology only when it further enhances instruction rather than just what is used typically. So the timeline has really been very quick. We found one of the biggest questions that I've received is, what board action did this take? And there wasn't board action that required us to use Chromebooks. And while our board has been informed and supportive along the way, it did not require board action for us to do this removal. We weren't using any additional district funds as we secured those grants. And so we were able to make this change quickly and with a lot of staff buy-in.
Hey. So one of the things that we have been talking about, actually, that kind of led into us preparing for the change back when the cell phones were taken away, was just the impact on mental health, the impact on the student as a whole within the school day. And so rewinding back, some of the things that we did and the resources that we accessed really helped kind of set the stage for community parent buy-in. But through these resources, which we'll talk about on the next slide, we have really come to learn and understand the significant impact on a student's ability to focus and their social well-being and emotional well-being. And so when we think about technology and the impact that it has, we notice that they're not able to sustain their attention for as long. And when you're not able to do that, then your ability to think more critically and deeply and engage in, higher levels of learning is impacted as well. Frustration tolerance is also something that we've noticed. And in the digital age, students want things to happen immediately, and they want the answers to be there and accessible and responses to happen immediately. And so when we remove that, then all of a sudden we find that their grit, their ability for uh, sustaining their attention and problem solving increases. When it comes to social well-being, they're forced to have face-to-face interactions more. And so one of the things that we notice with less screens is increased opportunities for social interaction, which gives more real-world practice. And it can increase their ability and their capacity for empathy towards others, towards their peers, but it also can increase their own self-confidence um, in navigating social interactions with others. And so it also means less technoference, which is like engrossed in your screens, kind of we're not really paying attention to what's kind of going on around us. And so that contributes to students feeling more socially isolated and not feeling like they have a connection to school or to peers. And so that increases school avoidance. And so we have also found that, in the research saying like that our, the absenteeism rates and things are going up. And so that's something that we were hoping that we could impact as well. So when we talk about emotional well-being, just increasing their resiliency, their ability to have interactions with others that don't go well and learn from that and be able to move on and move forward and cope through it. And then this digital cognitive load where there's a lot of like apps that they have to sign into or a lot of accounts that they need to keep track of and passwords. And one of the things, that the research says is that it can increase burnout and it just increases their stress load already, which is already high because, they're in a social setting. And then that can also create information overload. So it's sort of like this, if we think about our own relationship with technology, people always having access to us, it's kind of like this always on mentality. And so when we're feeling like we're always comparing ourselves and social comparison takes place, and then mood disorders increase anxiety and depression, those things are definitely significantly impacted through the use of increased screen use. So we have noticed, as just in the quick short turnaround, parents were overwhelmingly supportive of this move. And staff were pretty supportive of it as well, but parents were really, really excited about it. And as Ms. Esping said, they noticed a reduction in discipline data with the cell phone, with eliminating cell phones. There's also been a reduction in discipline data since this move as well. So one of the resources is the Anxious Generation, and Jonathan Haidt has said that the only way to free up attention for each other and for their teachers is to remove their phones. And so a lot of the research that is out there really focuses on the removal of cell phones from the school environment. But when we think about that and how beneficial that's been for us, we can really generalize a lot of this to just having a distraction-free environment with the reduction of Chromebooks. There's also this there's a thing called the 20-minute recovery rule. So there's research out there that says like it takes about 20 minutes to get back and refocus into deep learning once your attention has been diverted from like a notification or a screen or a distraction. And then there's this classmate distraction effect as well. So I might not have a device out, but my classmate might, and all of a sudden they're doing something cool, or they're, maybe doing something they shouldn't. And then my attention is also diverted. And so, we really hope that we will see some positive benefits from the reduced opportunities for distraction as well. So, go ahead.
Oh, there is so much research out there, but it's also shaped quite a bit by experience. So, Carrie, I'll talk about the staff experience, and then I'll have you talk about just some of the other things that have been swirling around our district that really helped to propel us further. A lot of the things that our teachers talked about last spring was just what Carrie was saying, just noticing an increase in dysregulation and anxiety and depression of our students. Those struggles to transition away from technology to focus on the lesson were becoming so frustrating for our teachers. So last spring, one step that we took was bell work could no longer be online because students were running to their next class, not doing the bell work that was online, but hopping on games instead, and then struggling to transition off. Now, that wasn't every student for sure, but it was enough students that it was becoming really frustrating for our staff. We could definitely see that students were struggling with their attention span, with that frustration tolerance. But another big piece that our staff discussed was just how they felt. They just felt this internal struggle of they want to, during independent work time, be out with their classes and be helping students more one-on-one and going around their classrooms, but they felt like anytime they would intently focus with one or a small group of students, they were very concerned about the rest of the students and are they where they need to be on their device. So they really felt tied to their own devices more than they should, really managing Go Guardian and Bark to make sure that students were where they were supposed to be. And that was something that really resonated with a lot of our staff members, was just that pull of, I feel like my students are online so much, and then I feel I have to be tied to my own device so much. And really, I just want to be out there helping kids and reteaching and reinforcing and providing guidance. And so that was something that really resonated, not just with our BLT team, but with all of our staff to help propel us further. And then, Carrie, if you'd talk too about just all the other things swirling around that helped support our decision making.
Yeah. So we're in the middle of passing period here, so I apologize if the bell goes off while I'm another thing I think that kind of goes along with the distraction effect is the research also shows that just the presence of a screen is fragmenting to attention. And so just by removing the screen, can really increase their capacity. So prior to eliminating the cell phone at the middle school, Miss Esping hosted a community event, parent community event, and showed the Screenagers documentary. And so that kicked off kind of like the conversation and the awareness piece outside of the school walls. And so from that, they have a lot of really good resources on their website, but they have the Away for the Day campaign. So she thought, let's utilize that, and that's going to be our rule for phones. And so we've just followed them for resources and ideas. And actually, they are doing a new documentary, and I believe within the next week or two, and McPherson Middle School will be featured in the documentary and the new Screenagers documentary. So That's pretty exciting. And then the Anxious Generation book came out a few years ago. And so I felt really like it was really important to get the word out about that. And so we did at the beginning of this school year, we had our district PD, and I did a staff PD presentation on that. And we also this fall did a community, so not just our high school, but anybody in our district and staff could participate in the book study, a book study for that. And then our Board of Ed also did their own book study on the anxious generation. So I think that really helped lay some additional groundwork for and data for our concerns that we have with regards to technology access, not just with Chromebooks, but with social media as well. And then we are fortunate also because we have Miss Esping and some teachers that are part of and have participated in the Blue Ribbon Task Force through the state, and also are part of the Kansas Coalition for Distraction-Free School Environment. So they've got some resources and things that they've taken away from being part of those groups, which has really been helpful as well. Um, I think also we just going back to the emotional resiliency, I think just really hoping that we can witness the just an increase in self-confidence and self-efficacy with our kids, just believing that they can make it through without having that dependency on that screen. So um, I like this quote that we put down here. This isn't about scrapping computers from schools. I think sometimes the media can maybe skew a little bit one way to try to make it a little more sensationalized, but we aren't eliminating Chromebooks. It's about restoring the rigor and utilizing the Chromebook as a tool for instruction when it could be helpful. But yeah, I just like that quote too.
Yeah, very good. So again, our timeline of implementation has been very quick. This just started last spring where those discussions began in BLT. And it really did come down to one brave teacher saying, I think that some of the issue is our Chromebooks. From there, we were really grounded in that research and grounded in our own experiences. We talked to our site council and our PTO and found overwhelming support there last spring, as well to move forward with this initiative. From there, I informed the district and Board of Education of our intention. I did absolutely have some questions from Board of Education members about cost in particular. Our district is one that is facing some enormous cuts for next year, and so there was concern about is this going to cause a huge increase in copy count? Is that something that we need to account for? And where are those balances coming from? So I've appreciated our board members who have reached out so that we can discuss that and figure out what that best plan is moving forward. Knowing that, we started that grant writing process and really preparing our staff this fall to be able to transition just here recently. One thing that we were very fortunate here in McPherson, I know that there are a number of districts out there who are really going to struggle making this transition because all of their curriculum is currently online. In McPherson, we'd already been thoughtful of our curriculum that while there are online components, we also have physical textbooks and workbooks and worksheets already. So I think if you're a district that's looking at this, that could be a big consideration for your district. Is your curriculum that hybrid like what we were blessed to have? That could definitely be a challenge. In talking with our tech department, they have felt really confident that if we do have an increase of copy count, that will be kind of countered with the decrease in cost for equipment repair. So we've already seen our equipment repairs go down dramatically, which has been very exciting to see. Some early implementation impressions that we've already had as well, in addition to less breaks of the devices. I have not received a single Go Guardian or Bark notification since this change. I have not had students access, at least to the point that it sends me an alert. They have not accessed inappropriate things on sites since we made this change in January. And I can't even express how huge of a transformation that in and of itself is. Some students, maybe a surprising thing for me, was students saying, I didn't realize how heavy these devices were. I didn't realize like how much weight I was taking from class to class. Many of our students have been excited about moving to paper. They felt that they're more engaged, that they have more conversations with their peers. I had a student yesterday report that she was using time in class just to visit with friends, and then, oh, I'll work on my homework later. It's no big deal. And she was noticing how that was really adversely affecting her grades. She said, knowing that she only has this computer for this task has helped her become more focused. She's enjoyed being able to manipulate with her hands more. She said overall, she just feels more present and engaged in her classes. I have another student who has reported she goes to our high school for 2 classes a day. She said for her, it's a completely different take of when she's here and in between classes, she visits with people in the hallway or before class starts. There's that friendly chit chat and learning those conversational skills with her peers. She said it's felt very awkward, even more so now when she goes to our high school because students have their cell phones in passing period or they hop on their device. And she said she doesn't feel like she needs to hop on her device for something, but it's felt very awkward that she doesn't have people to talk to. And that's something you certainly notice around our hallways. Students are willing to talk with one another, to make conversation, to strike up a conversation, things like that, which is exactly what we hope students do and develop those soft skills. I certainly do have some teachers who are feeling overwhelmed by more paper grading and are trying to figure out some of those, maybe old school tips and tricks that some of us who have had a little bit more experience used to lean on quite a bit. But technology had really given teachers some opportunity to help with some grading pieces. So finding that balance has been a challenge for some of our teachers. But at the same token, I've had so many teachers reach out to say they can't believe how fast things are transitioning in their classroom. If they, make a transition from guided practice to independent work, kids are doing that quickly. When they make a transition from bell work to starting a lesson, kids are transitioning quickly. It's not those incessant reminders to get off that device. Like Carrie shared earlier, the parent view, we've had an overwhelming amount of positive feedback, and we really weren't sure what that was going to look like. While I felt between our site council and our PTO, we had a pretty good representation of parents, I was really concerned with how maybe shocking this would be for families. Most have been very, very excited about this change. We have had a few parents reach out with concerns about missing assignments, and we've really been able to think about how do we address organizational challenges that students are facing. So when we came back in January, we did take students through. We developed some lessons on organization through our advisory period during bullpup time that we implemented with students. And then we've really been taking notes about how do we really beef that up in the fall so that students have a good step forward with organization, and so that parents too can just be better equipped in that process as well. But any of the concerns that we've had, we've been able to problem solve and work together. So it's really been exciting to see. the thing that I also just want to make sure that I'm saying so very loudly is how proud I am of our staff here. This has been a big change, and we entered it not knowing the answer to every question, and likely not even knowing every question that's going to be asked of us this spring yet. I think it takes a lot of bravery for a staff to say, I still see such value in this that we're going to work on it together. And I think that's a big thing that schools and districts and boards need to consider is communicating that with your community and with your students and families. We're going to face challenges. We're going to face unknowns. And that's where communication and working together are so very key so that we can problem solve together and have a positive move forward. So with that, we anticipate there's probably some questions that you all have, and Carrie and I both value the conversation that has surrounded this. So we are very curious to hear what questions do you have, and let's have a conversation.
Thank you so much. Ward, do you have a question? I have one from our participants, but I will let you kind of chime in first if you have some.
No, thank you. Great presentation. So interesting. I love the results that you're getting already. I, being an ex-principal, a lot of times I'm thinking about um, the staff and textbooks. A lot of school districts went everything online, curriculum. You were saying that that's a big transition. If they don't have that, they're going to have to develop that, get textbooks, do the things that are necessary. But then I think, did you have them have to do lesson plans so they would really work at being prepared for this transition?
We did not ask for specific lesson plans, things like that. We did work a lot with our learning leads, so with our department chairs, to consider
Mhm.
questions or concerns that their departments had, and then we problem solved together. So I have a pretty young math teacher, for example. She was probably my one that was sharing the most concerns about how am I going to manage grading and things
Mhm.
like that. Um, Before I could even enter that conversation, her other math department friends were able to say, "We've got ideas. Let's problem solve that together. Let's work together." Which, I mean, what a powerful way to move forward, to really focus on that collaboration with one another. And I've been very lucky here with the staff. They've also helped me in not allowing people to find kind of that easy way out. They've supported their fellow staff members into making this initiative really happen and work for them.
Well, one of the things about Chromebooks, for the student, there's automatic feedback. I mean,
Hmm.
you get it rather quickly. Is a bigger transition time now for the teacher to get that feedback back to the student?
It is a little bit bigger of a transition time, and that's where, in let's say math in particular, teachers have been very quick to transition to more of an exit ticket type of strategy, where they're trying to get feedback to students quicker on a smaller amount of questions, because that was a concern that they had too, and something that they really valued was making sure that students knew where they were at. So it's just been about developing some different strategies and maybe some quicker formative types of checks, to make sure that students are making adequate progress and then adjusting their teaching if need be from there.
So basically, we're seeing a lot more pen and pencil type work,
Absolutely.
and it's
Yes.
fantastic. Great job.
Thank you. I would
Congratulations.
say last week when I did walkthroughs, um, and this week's been a little different, but last week I didn't have a single classroom that I went into other than my technology class that was using Chromebooks.
Oh,
This
that's awesome.
I've seen Chromebooks, and so I'm just so appreciative that teachers, I think, here are also challenging themselves to think about, how do I lessen this? Is this valuable? Do I really have to? And they're finding ways to make it work. So they've done such a beautiful job.
I'll
Putting
also
student
say,
achievement
oh,
first is wonderful.
Yes, yes.
I'm done, Trace.
from
Go ahead,
yeah,
Carrie.
from the parent perspective, because I also have a student at the middle school, um, I would see, and he's a great student. I would see the Chromebook on the table, on the counter at home, and he would tell me about some things, but I never, I never dug into it, right? I didn't feel like I needed to. And now I see actual assignments and I see the things that they're working on, and I can kind of ask and engage questions, like, oh, what's this about? Or it's just kind of fun to see like what he actually brings home. Um, and for my own knowledge, and on the way to school in the mornings, like the very first morning, I noticed he was talking to me more, because he could get on his little game on his, Chromebook before, but he was talking to me more. So I really love it from the parent perspective too.
That's terrific. We have a few questions from those who are, have joined us. And so I'm gonna to start with that, and this could go to both of you. But one of the questions I have is, how is your high school and elementary schools responding to screen time shift? Is there a plan to transition in some way at that level?
Well, our elementary principals are also very passionate about reduction of screen time. And so I know that all four of them have really challenged their teachers too to think about when do you need and when do you not need. So I really feel confident already. Our elementaries use screen time sparingly, just as needed, or for certain pieces of the curriculum, whatever else. And they're all on carts at our elementary school. Our high school has not quite entered this conversation yet about Chromebooks. They, I know, have been working towards a shift on their cell phone policy, but I'll turn it over to Carrie to speak a little bit more to that because she's at the high school. It's probably going to be more in the know than even I am.
Um, I believe that the plan is to move towards a no cell phone policy next year, bell to bell. There has not been, we haven't had definitive policies come out of for that yet, but I believe that's where we're headed, and I think that's a great start.
Well, the next question that we have from our audience has to do with the curriculum. Are there plans to shift to less tech-dependent curriculum going forward? You mentioned that you did not have a heavy tech curriculum already, but you must have had some part of that. So was there, are you continuing to shift forward away from technology in your curriculum?
So all four of our core curriculums do have the online, but then also the not online component. So right now, I don't know that we need any further shifts here because we don't have to, and our board does not expect us to use the online component. So that has been wonderful. And then we do have some of our interventions I know are a little bit more heavily online. But even those here at our middle school level in particular, we're not quite seeing the push that we'd like to with those ed tech types of interventions. And so my two interventionists will use tech some and sparingly as part of a small group. But if you go into my reading or my math interventions or to my special education classrooms, most likely you're going to see teacher work working with students and not on screens by and large.
So, in this, kind of going along with this, with the curriculum, you mentioned this a little bit in your conversation or in your presentation, but can you give us a little bit more insight into feedback of teachers who are likely doing more manual grading of assignments and how they feel about this and how they're adapting
Yeah.
to the extra, what some may think or perceive to be, extra workload?
Yeah. So really this is where it's been so valuable to have folks who have just had a lot of experiences and who have been able to teach prior to being this inundated with technology. And so where I'm seeing the biggest maybe just struggle is within our math department, just because of the amount of grading that they have. What that's done for our math department, however, is to really get into discussions of how much practice do our students actually need? Do my students need to go home with 20 problems? Does that make sense for independent work? Or how can I have shorter checks where it's manageable for me to grade? I provide enough practice, but I'm not over practicing students. I'm not overwhelming students. So I think it's gone back to some really good questions of just, just because the worksheet has 20 questions on it, that doesn't mean that that's what we have to do. And it's given them a little bit more decision making. From there, teachers are finding that groove. They are really finding that ability to use that planning time maybe a little bit differently to stay up on their grading. And so while it's been a concern, it's not been a huge barrier. And it's been just some good conversations for some of our more experienced folks to help some of our newer folks learn different organizational strategies of their own, to be able to still provide some good high quality feedback. Another thing, a challenge that we had faced, my own child's math teacher, for example, she, over the first couple of weeks of the transition, students would work on paper and then they would just enter their answers into a Google form for quick grading and just to make sure that they were being given feedback really quickly. Then she was going through and spot checking assignments. She found, I helped my own son with a math assignment, and he didn't do as well as we had expected. And I did teach math here in the building. So I, commented to her, I think I'm getting a little rusty. Help me figure out what we did wrong on this as I was helping him, because I recognized that he was struggling with this concept. As she looked through, she actually found a mistake on the Google form. And so it was misgrading some students' assignments. So, as quick as that seemed and as handy as it seemed to have that online, we found some challenges of there was a mistake made with how it was grading. And so it just kind of goes to show that power of we still need to check. We still need to ensure that that tech is giving us the right answers and the right feedback and things like that. The power of the teacher is still very, very much present and alive. So.
You make an excellent point that we lean oftentimes on technology so much that we don't question it, but we just accept it. And so it seems to me like you had, what I was hearing in your presentation, that you've had a little bit of a runway that led up to this with the restriction of Spotify, the restriction of YouTube. Do you think that those kinds of measures getting into this place helped you to work through this in a less disruptive way? Or, I mean, would that be something that you think would be helpful for other districts who might be considering this as an option?
I think so. I think the reason that we arrived at this decision maybe as quickly as we did was because of our previous experiences and our willingness to already set some different restrictions, and still seeing some of those challenges. I would say probably the most impactful of those different restrictions, other than the cell phone ban, was the student-to-student email. um, that making that change was a significant positive step forward in helping our students be less distracted within the classroom and more focused on their studies. But I think all of those previous experiences, even our experience of being so heavily reliant on a heavy tech curriculum without that paper pencil option, really led us to questioning, how do we find balance differently?
That's very helpful. Also, it was interesting to me that as you moved into this transition, that you engaged the community, as you said. I think, Carrie, you talked a little bit about that as well. You had a teacher who kind of took this on. So it was interesting to me that your grants came from the community. So it certainly is something that you had a lot of community input and the community support. And so I would think that that would mitigate some of the questions or concerns. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree with that. That's where we felt confident that we were going to have a lot of parents who were pleased, but we were curious if we would have a lot of families who were frustrated. And we were surprised to find, truly, I don't think I've had a single parent reach out with frustration. They've reached out with questions that need to be problem solved on organizational things, what have you, or if my child does need a Chromebook for a homework assignment, how does that happen? Which we have Chromebooks in our library that students can check out if a teacher deems that they need a Chromebook for homework. So we've tried to anticipate some of those questions, but like I said, they've been questions, not concerns. They've been things to problem solve, not frustration. So that's been just very uplifting, I guess, to see too.
Did you want to contribute, Carrie? I wasn't sure if you
Oh,
had
I was
something else
just
you
going to
wanted.
mention about some parents being concerned about like if they maybe don't have the resources at home to purchase their own or have that accessible to a student if they want to work on it at home. It's really opened up, like Miss Esping said, the doors to problem solving and digging a little deeper. And maybe this isn't just about not having the Chromebook or computer at home. Maybe there's some other things that we can do to help problem solve that in the school environment that we might not have otherwise been aware of. And then also helping students and families understand that there are other avenues for them to get some additional support outside of school, at the school with the tutorial. Is that what yeah, with
Yeah.
tutorial. And so that's also kind of opened some parents' eyes too, I think, to some other things that are available for students to get additional help.
Mhm.
Great.
Another thing that I would note is when we had the one-to-one initiative, I think I received more questions then from families of how do I even know what my kid has
Mhm.
for homework? How do I keep track of this? How do I know if they've turned this in or not? I can't understand Google Classroom. And so my student tells me that they finished it. Have they really? Or my student spent an hour and a half on homework last night and I'm concerned about that. And then finding out from the teacher, actually, that should have taken only 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm hopeful that this change too can provide our families with just a better ability to be more in the know. You're looking for a physical product. You're looking for your student is not getting distracted online, and so their homework is taking much less time, things like that. So even right before we made the change, I had several parents, oh, I'm so excited for January because I think I'm finally going to have some sort of knowledge of what my student does or does not have for homework. I can come to the school and look in their locker with them and know that we're looking for, math worksheet 5.3 or whatever it is, rather than feeling lost online. So truly, there's been some sort of sense of relief for some of our families that they feel like they're going to be able to help partner with the school better now that there's not Chromebooks.
And I would also add to that as far as the parenting side of things with a student having a district issued device at home and just the parenting challenges that that can create when we talk about as parents trying to limit our children's access to screens and screen time, that just as a district, we contributed to that difficulty. And so as parents, when they don't have a Chromebook coming home that students, have access to whenever, I think it makes it easier to move in that direction as well.
Agreed.
I would agree. And it sounds like you've done some amazing things, not only to help students in their education, to be focused in the classroom, but also it looks like that ripple effect that is helping families and helping the community, students to be more engaged with their families and with their friends. So I think that's very positive.
Yeah.
Well, we do not have any more questions and we're coming to a close. Ward, do you have any other questions that you would like to ask or anything else you would like to ask before we close our webinar today?
Well, I noticed you have emails down there. If somebody has questions, do you mind if they email you a question?
Please do reach out. We're happy to help support.
I just love everything you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, my understanding is that, well, what I know is on this webinar, there are individuals that are not only from Kansas or in our region, but are across the nation that are looking at this and looking at what you have done. Appreciate you coming on today and talking with us about this and all the process that you went through and how it actually is working out for you with your students in your district. So thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with us today and away from school. And I know you've got a lot of other things going on. We're not the only thing in your day. So want to thank you so much for your time. For those of you who are present, you will receive a recording of this webinar. And also want to let you know that on February 26th, Daniel Buck, who is a expert in behavioral issues in the classroom, he will hold a webinar for us about the effects of academic performance and student discipline and classroom management on academic achievement. So you can find a link on our events page to register for that webinar on February 26th at noon, and also other upcoming webinars. We will have some more coming up fairly soon. And as always, if we can answer a question or offer support or resource, we are always ready to help. Thanks so much, and we hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Our participants are very excited about what you had to say, and we hope all goes well with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.